see. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Jenn Masse. Jenn is here today to talk about high expectations, lacking inspiration, and her journey of chasing different career paths, titles, and promotions to find happiness. But in the end, she found herself to be lost and burnt out. Today, Jenn is an ICF certified mindset and empowerment coach who is passionate about empowering women and small business owners to break free from the limitations that are holding them back from achieving success on their own terms. Welcome, Jenn.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to sit down and talk about this, because I think that this is a subject that all women low-key have.
Yeah.
For real. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of crap you have going on in your life. This is something that we all deal with. And I so appreciate you being open about it and vulnerable about it, and really allowing us to kind of dig into, your journey and what it looked like to kind of better assist and help us. So I kind of want to just jump right in. I would love to hear your early years, your childhood, what your life looked like as a child and a teenager that kind of like set you up for, what your journey entailed.
Yeah. So I always laugh because it's like typically when you hear these stories of someone like pivoting their career or like having this big aha moment, like something traumatic happened. And nothing traumatic happened in my life. Like, I had an amazing upbringing. My parents were wonderful, together, not divorced. I had an older brother who is a goofball. And he is actually the source of, like, I think everything. Once I kind of went back, and once I was old enough to kind of reflect back and like look at what quote unquote went wrong, like what led me to where I was. And so my brother's 2.5 years older than me. And my parents always, in their eyes, did everything equally, but I was the responsible child.
Okay.
I was the responsible one. I was the one who was saving before I was ever born, who was told at a very young age, like, you have your head screwed on straight, like, you'll take care of us when we're older. My brother, to no fault of his own, has ADD. He has learning disabilities. So he just couldn't keep it together.
Yeah.
And so I was always the one who was like, be the perfect child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, David is enough. Like, he takes all of my parents' time. So like, Jenn's the good one. Jenn's the quiet one. Jenn's not the troublemaker. Jenn walks like the path that we tell her to walk, and she's fine.
Yeah.
And it was always like going through school. We lived in a small town. So going through school, they're like, oh, another Masse. I'm like, no, I'm not him. No, I'm me. Like, I'm a good kid. Like, don't worry, I'm a good kid. So my whole life was like being the responsible one, like just being the good kid and having those high expectations. Like, those expectations that I then carried forward into my career were set for me at such a young age of like, do this. Like, my dad from a very young age was like, you're going to be the one that's going to carry us. Like, you're going to be the CEO of a company one day. Like, you're going to be a VP. You're going to have the 401. Like, you're going to do all these things. I'm like, okay. If that makes you happy. Okay. If that's what, like, I associated that with love as a child.
Yeah.
So like that, and it's like one of those things that it never really clicked until I had my face down moment in corporate, that all of a sudden I'm like, it was him. It was my brother's fault.
That's so funny.
But yeah, in a nutshell, like, that was me. Like, star athlete, star student. Everything was like, on paper, I had a great life, but I was also very angry. I was flipping through some journals that my mom gave me, like that I kept as a child. Writing has always been my outlet. And I was like, ooh, I had anger issues.
That is so funny. Wait,
Mm-hmm.
when did you start writing in a journal?
Probably the moment I could. Like, it goes back to where you can barely read it, like probably kindergarten.
Wow.
Block lettering. I went through a phase where I wrote in secret code, so my parents couldn't tell what I was writing, even though the rubrics or whatever was in the back. Like, someone could easily just flip to the back of the journal, figure out my code, and figure out what I was journaling about.
Oh, that's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you. Yeah, I started journaling at 12. I don't know if you know this, but I come on every Monday and I read from my old journals. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah. It's low key, super embarrassing.
I would love to join in because it would probably normalize a lot of what I wrote about. Like, oh, I have journal entries in there. Like, I mean, I have the standard kid acting out ones. Like, I hate my mom. And then my mom was like, we love you. I'm like, you weren't supposed to read this. Oh yeah. I have a whole series where I'm like crushing on guys in 8th grade.
Yes. That's where I'm at right now. It's so embarrassing. Literally every dude that comes into my life, I'm writing about and just loving all of them. It's so embarrassing.
Mm-hmm. There's a few names that immediately just came to me, like, oh, I remember journaling about them. I wonder where they are now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so I started at 12 and I'm going in chronological order. I went through and I numbered all of them in order for the years, So I'm just going 1 through, I think I have like 36 or 37 of them. That's awesome. I think I'm on number 9, maybe.
Okay.
But I'm 15. So it's so bad. It's so bad.
It is also really funny because I don't know about you, but like you can tell when I'm like in it and out of it, because all of a sudden I'll be like, tomorrow I'm doing this. And then 6 months later, I'm like, so I haven't journaled in a while. Like, yeah, accurate. That's totally how I live my life right now.
Same. Yes, same. Oh, that's great. So so everything was going good for you. Star athlete, everything's great. You finished school and then you get into career. So what did your career life look like?
So I'm gonna reverse for a second. Because that got me through high school.
Oh, okay.
And I think that getting into college is really important because I wanted to be a marketing major. I wanted to do all things marketing, but I went to school in 2008 when the market crashed. So my dad, because I had my parents on a pedestal, was basically like, you need to be an accountant. Like, you need to be an accountant. You're really good at math, which, full disclosure, being good at math does not mean that you're good at accounting. So anyone who is being fed that lie right now, I'm calling bullshit. It doesn't. It does not compute. It is
That's great.
Like, go be a math major or something if you like math, and just don't do it. I shouldn't say don't do accounting. We all need accountants. I'm meeting with my accountant tonight. But so I chose accounting because my dad was like, accounting will guarantee you a job.
That's
when
true.
You graduate.
Yeah.
Like, accounting is the fast path to success. Accounting will make you boatloads of money. And we all know that the goal in life is to make boatloads of money so you can retire someday.
Yeah.
So anyways, fast forward to my career, I started in public accounting and I was miserable. Like,
oh my God.
Absolutely miserable. Never mind the fact I failed most of my accounting classes. But I started in public accounting, and I don't know how much you know about that industry.
Nothing. Zero.
Yeah, lots of introverts. Like, the running joke is that like accountants look at their shoes when they talk to you. I was in auditing, and people don't like being audited. So like, I, as an extrovert in a career surrounded by introverts, where I would go talk to clients who, as a principal, hated me. As a principal, they were like, you're an auditor. You're here to yell at us. Go away.
Yes.
So it's miserable. Like, I was like, this is awful. I tried to get my CPA, certified public accounting certification. Thankfully, I failed all 4 sections because that's like another downward spiral that they like. Basically, you have 18 months to pass all 4 sections, and it's a rolling 18. So what happens is like if you pass one and then fail, you might lose your first one. So it's like it could take people like 4 or 5 years to pass this exam. It's awful.
Wow.
So yeah, so I'm really grateful that I failed all 4 sections because I didn't have that hanging over my head. I was just like, cool. Told you I wasn't good at this. Around the same time, the governing board for accounting changed the rules, where if you wanted to sit for your CPA, you needed 150 hours versus the standard 120 that you get in college.
Yeah.
So I failed all 4 and I was no longer going to be grandfathered in. So I'm like, well, I'm not going back to school just to take this stupid test.
Wow.
So yes, that was like 2.5 years of awfulness. Like my boss never talked to me. The only time that she would talk to me would be like, hey, have you passed your exam yet? Like, no, I haven't. Please recognize me for like the energy that I bring to the team and like the leadership that I bring to the team. So I quickly about-faced and I moved to a international science company, which I also failed all my science classes. So like as much as I was a star student, like science was not a strong suit, and accounting, I just hated it. So I just don't think I wanted to do good at those classes on principle. But I went to work for this international company, still in accounting, still in audit, but it was internal audit. So in my head, I'm like, oh, this is so much better because like we're all on the same team. Like they're going to want me there. I got to travel internationally, which was amazing. So I was in and out of Europe and Asia and doing all these really cool things, but people still hated me because I was an auditor and I was still going in and yelling at them and telling them that like they weren't following the controls.
Wow.
So a couple years into that, I'm like, I'm done. Like, I love the travel, but you also don't tell me my schedule. So I'm like missing family events and missing friends events. Like I was starting to really feel the impact in my life.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, I always wanted to do marketing. So
yes,
went back to school and I got my MBA in marketing. Thankfully, my company paid for it. And I moved into like a marketing sales development type role and like a project management role that supported the sales team. I'm like, this is cool. Like I'm finally getting a little bit closer to what I thought I wanted. And the more and more I like work towards these different things, I was like, I'm still not happy. Like I'm doing more of the marketing, which is fun, but like there was a piece of me that felt like it wasn't being fulfilled. So I joined the wellness committee that I loved because that for me in my career, the wellness committee, which is a volunteer spot, was the thing that brought me the most joy. And that's because I really got to connect with people, empower people, help educate people, bring programs in. And it was all like health and wellness related, but we did mental health and everything else as well. And then my company got rid of that around the same time that I was skipped over for a promotion. It was just like that and my company being acquired and like a few different moving pieces.
Yeah.
Led to a downward spiral, like an 18-month downward spiral where I was so burnt out. I was like fighting for this position that they promised me that never came to fruition. They also promised it to a client. So it's a little PO'd because I'm like, you lied. Like you lied. You didn't lie to me. You lied to a client.
Totally. Wow.
But yeah, so like my career was very, like I was in the President's Club. So I was like a super high achiever. And I worked my way up the ranks. It just, something was always just missing.
Yeah.
And I think I realized that when I was pitching a project to my boss, who was like a corporate robot, who's an awful human to report to.
Oh, no.
But I was pitching a project to him and it was a project that was going to help our sales reps and an underserved segment of our market. So it was kind of a twofold project where I'm like, these customers are not getting any product from anybody. Like it's just an ignored segment. And it's not just about pushing product and making sales. We sold educational science supplies. So it's like getting these supplies to children in schools. So it's like, oh, like this is a project that can like get product to those kids so they can like have a better education, and it can help our reps do that in such a way that they're not getting slammed on their numbers. And he didn't even finish saying no, and I just broke down.
Oh,
like, ugly, snotty, hyperventilating.
oh,
And like I'm not an emotional person, which I know is a lie. We're all emotional beings, but like I don't show my emotions.
okay.
So for that to happen in his office, I was like, something's wrong.
Yes.
Something's wrong.
Yeah. Wow.
I was always the one that was applauded for like, doesn't matter what's going wrong. Jenn's got like a backbone of steel. Like Jenn's an emotional wall. And like, so for that to happen, I could not control myself.
Wow.
And he was like, go home. I was like, okay. He was like, it was a Wednesday. And he was like, go home, come back Monday. And like through my hyperventilating tears, I'm like, but I have a meeting with Linda in a half an hour. And like, I'm at a conference on Monday. So like, I'm actually not going to be until Wednesday. And he was like, just leave. He was like, I'll call Linda. I'm like, okay. And Linda was like the source of a lot of my stress at the time. So I'm like, yeah, you do you. But yeah, so I took a couple days off, and it was when I took a couple days off, I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. I can't keep chasing this. I can't keep putting my future in somebody else's hands.
Yeah.
And I literally Googled careers that will allow me to inspire and empower people. And that's when
yeah. Thank Google.
Thank Google. So yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's cool.
Over a decade that led me to that moment. And I literally was like, career. And I found coaching.
Wow.
And I found a coaching certification program that helped me rediscover who I was, which was the most critical part in my whole journey, because I did not know who I was. I don't think I've ever known who I was, because I was always the good girl. But the good girl, I don't think is actually who I was. I think I've always been a rebel.
The best.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great.